happening, Warriors and War? It's 11IK War for 120, host of course, Warheart TV, bringing back another actual review. Now, this review is going to be a little bit different. We're not going to actually have any audio clips in this review, simply because of this band being what we call an atmospheric rock or atmospheric metal band in a lot of that kind of ways. Now, what the problem with that is that the reason why we can't really do that is because when you start doing audio clips for atmosphere is really hard for you to grasp in a little 15-second clippets of it, and so I don't want you to get dilapidated opinions from a music that's actually designed for you to listen to it as an experience rather than as a clip-it. That's what Anathema is bringing to you with this new album, the 2017 album, The Optimist. Now, Anathema is a band that pretty much has 100% left behind the metal community as far as being an actual continuing maker of true metal music, as far as what snobs would actually refer to it as. But at the same time, they're still very metal in their approach, their style, and also how they actually execute certain sounds in their album. This new album is a continuation of their long tradition of being what we call an atmospheric band, a band that just creates a penetrating environment for which you, the listener, dive into and experience, as you more digest the album than you actually feel the album. It's one of those kind of things. I don't know how else to describe it other than that it's really an album that you don't actually listen to, you more of just experience. As far as that goes, even in their days where they were essentially a true on true black metal, doom metal band, they were still a band that was creating this atmospheric approach. And it's one of the reasons why they have one of the top rated albums of all time on the website, which is metalstorm.net, a community that I very much use for a lot of my own kind of research, and also just being able to bounce opinions off of people in the community. They have a dual vocal presence with, of course, Vincent Cavanaugh being the male vocalist and then Lee Douglas being the female vocalist. And they also have, of course, Danny Cavanaugh, Vincent's relative, and of course Jamie, another one of the family members, on the drums on there. So they have a very unique vocal presence that we're seeing a lot more often in bands, where a lot more bands are putting these multiple vocalist fronts on their records, and it really creates a different type of mood. Now, one of the big things about this is that why are we talking about a band that has changed or left the metal genre as a whole? The thing is, I'm personally someone who believes the metal genre is bigger than what we actually let it to be sometimes. So often we try to put it in a box and say that it can't be this or it can't be that. Anathema is a band that was making great music back when they had a metal appearance, but at the same time, even when they started changing from the metal appearance and kind of pulled back their metal and really turned it into more of an atmospheric type of presence when they released the album Alternative 4. You gotta remember, the Alternative 4 and then the next album after that, Judgment, are highly rated and highly respected albums that have won many awards, and and they still do. They won with the We're Here Because We're Here album in 2010, the best alternative metal album on Metal Storm from there. They've always scored high on all of their stuff. And the thing is, they're not going to stop doing that anytime soon, because they continue bringing this unique and beautiful approach. Lee's vocals are on point. The big thing about this band, though, is that it makes it hard for you to actually experience it by sitting down and really experiencing their album. It's a progressive atmosphere. It's a progressive atmosphere, one that has very many different sounds in it. And in a lot of ways, this actual album sounds more like what you would see from big contemporary worship bands. And I guess I actually said contemporary worship on a metal stream. Yes, they actually do have a lot of their sounds very familiar to me, because I played bass for a long time in a lot of contemporary worship groups. They kind of feel a lot more like that with their sound than they do more akin to hard rock heavy metal groups. And a lot of the reason why is because of what we're trying to accomplish there. What we're trying to accomplish with atmospheric rock is understanding that the idea of any of their poppy lyrics, any of their beauty or poeticism, is not due to build a chorus or build a singable hook. It is to build a vibe, a general feeling. It is to build a response, a part that you can actually listen to over and over again and really build an emotional connection over a period of crescendos and pianos. And that's really what we see in this album. This is a period of builds and then drops and builds and then lulls and builds and springboards. The sound San Francisco, essentially 4 minutes of just really chill, kind of just almost indie rock kind of presence on there, but still grips me and really gets me going and really gets me feeling interested. The song "Leaving It Behind," beautiful vocals on there, but also honestly feels more like a sludge rock or even a song that you would almost hear on a Queens of Stone Age Muse album. It just feels a little different. But at the end of the day, it's not bad because of that. It's not just, it doesn't take anything away from it. The big thing that keeps this band able to be talked about in positive lights in the metal movement, despite the fact that they've left this type of style, is the fact that their lyricism and their mood is not in response to trying to create something for somebody else, if that makes sense. Let's give it another example of what we can of how we can explain this. What makes an album that would sound very similar to this, as far as just trying to listen to it or whatnot? That's would be considered a great pop album. Let's just take the Coldplay album. What was the one that they got really big off of? The one that had the scientists and the one that had clocks on there. I can't think of the name off the top. It's A Rush of Blood to the Head, which was a great album, by the way. I love their song "The Warning Sign" on there. I just love the vibe of it. It's very atmospheric as well, and I like to compare these two because they feel kind of comparable. And I really don't want to compare the band Jesus Culture to Anathema, because that's just I know that by bringing up contemporary worship groups is just like an easy way to get punched in the face. But these guys honestly sound a lot more on this album like Hillsong United or Jesus Culture than they do any other metal group, and that's the frank truth of it. Unless you're trying to talk about like Porcupine Tree or someone that's just trying to build an atmosphere in an almost indie rock kind of presence. As far as what keeps a Coldplay album or even the 30 Seconds to Mars album, The Hunter, from being considered in any realm respectable in the metal community is because of two very big differences. One, the vibe. The vibe in those albums is not a vibe. The vibe in those albums is not done in a manner to give you a lasting experience. It is not one lasting experience from the start of the album to the end of the album. Even though those albums can be considered to have something of an almost prog element, or having a similar context behind it all, or having a similar theme behind it all, they don't have what this album has, which is the fact that it's consistent, and more importantly, the fact that those albums have direct singles off of those albums that are designed to be singles. They're designed to be listenable on the radio. They're designed to break from the theme of the album, to give the radio that 1 or 3 or 25 songs, in the instance of that Coldplay album, which, like I said, was a decent album. Let's just be honest about that. It was a decent album, really decent songwriting on there, really good songwriting. But it's not anywhere considerable, respectable in the metal movement, unlike this Anathema album. And the reason why is because the atmosphere is never diluted on account of trying to make a single. That's the big difference. A single, if it ever emerges from an atmospheric album, is done so. It's done so because the atmosphere allowed it to, not because there was a need for a single. If that makes any sense at all. And Anathema has never really been a band that really does that. That really creates a true single, if that makes sense. If they ever have music videos, they're a hard band to sell. They're a band that's made their mark on the heavy metal hard rock community over the years for being a band that's kind of like Dream Theater, where you just pop an album in and listen to the album. They're kind of like Queensryche in that manner, where you just pop the album in and listen to it, and obviously you find tracks that you like, but none of those tracks are tracks that even the metalhead radios would ever play, just because of the fact that they don't really flow well with other tracks. It's not that they're not great tracks to listen to, but they're hard tracks for anybody to try and put into a mixtape. And that's one of the things with this Anathema album that I still kind of get. I will tell you this, The atmosphere in general is a great feel. It's one that you definitely should listen to, and I'm excited to keep listening to this album. I really like the songs leading it behind. Dug the San Francisco track. Ghosts definitely had my heart, but as far as the back part of the album, really haven't gotten into it as far as yet. It may gravitate toward me in a little while, but I really was digging. Especially leaving it behind. Endless Ways, Lee Douglas's female vocals just take over, and it just was a beautiful display, and I really was enjoying it. And like I said, this album compares more toward a contemporary worship groups like Hillsong United or Jesus Culture than it actually does with anything that we really hear for the most part in the heavy metal community. That's not a diss toward this album, by the way. It's more of a attempt to try to find an honorable comparison. I don't know how else to put it. Let's go to the tally sheet, though. We're going to actually, like I said, grade this album, and like I said, this is a little bit shorter one because we're not going over individual tracks because of the fact that it is an atmospheric album, one that builds a tempo and never changes the tempo. Because of that, production always has to be on point, and this album did not fail. 10 out of 10 on that one. As far as artwork goes, it's simple. And it's one of those that isn't going to gravitate anyone to there, isn't even going to actually get anyone interested in looking at it. But when you listen to the album and hear the first track and sixth track, and also I believe the 10th track, the 8th track, and then the end of the 11th track, which the 11th track went on a little too long because it just turned into kind of a just a random noise track at the end, like a hidden track type of stuff at the end of it, but wasn't really a track. The artwork fits with the album, but it isn't going to bring in any new users, but it isn't going to take away from any new users. 6 out of 10 there. Sorry, I almost wrote 666. As far as for songwriting, I thought it was really ingenious. I thought they had a great flow as always. With atmospheric bands, they usually have very good songwriting because of the fact is they have to. They have to be able to put it together, and it has to be able to flow correctly and never detract from the atmosphere. If there's ever a break or a pause in a song, it has to be because it's either extending the atmosphere, altering the atmosphere, or breaking the atmosphere completely. They did a great job with but because there's not really any standout songs outside of just being able to listen to leaving it all behind, and of course just digging to San Francisco like you would almost a house track, gonna give it an 8 out of 10 there. As far as for pacing, did I feel like this album was too long, too short? I liked the pace of the album. There were decent parts of interludes or break points or pause points in the songs. If they ever actually changed over a song, it wasn't done in a violent kind of aggravating manner. I didn't really feel like there was any true tracks until the last track that actually just played on too long. And the last track really had like this. It wasn't even that it played on too long; it's just that it got to a point where you're listening to it, and it's kind of felt like a credits to a movie almost, where you're just hearing background random ass noise at that point. And so I gotta detract from it at that point. 7 out of 10 there. As far as for standouts, I don't know what's going on right here. It's an atmospheric album, not really any standout tracks. The tracks themselves are not really, as far as that goes, a big standout presence. So I'm going to have to give it a 6 out of 10 there. As far as for cohesion, and oh my gosh, of course, as an atmospheric band, complete cohesion there. 10 out of 10 there. No arguments, I'm sure, as you guys could feel, because the band just has complete and total atmospheric cohesion and presence right there as they go through everything together. Every song fit perfectly. Every song flowed absolutely crisp in a complete and coherent manner. As far as for replayability, would I listen to this album again? Hell yeah, I'd listen to this album again. Those of you guys out there who are missing the kind of old school, more aggro, Anathema, I get it. It's hard to it's not fun to have your favorite metal band really go soft on you. This is a band who kind of did it though in a very polite and honorable way. Not so much like a band like Linkin Park who's just tried to find the hot trend thing and go from it. This is actually a direction that Anathema has been leaning toward more and more and throughout their career, and they've done it in a progressive and relaxed kind of way to where you can never actually get angry at them, and you can't detract at them for their style. I give it a 9 out of 10 right there. Personal preference. Do I actually like atmosphere music? I actually do like atmospheric music. It's something that I actually like to listen to if I'm playing a video game or going to work out or just going for a drive. You gotta understand, my top played album of all time is as far as just I only have one CD in my car, and everything else is off my iPod. But if I don't have my iPod with me, I play this one CD. It's by a band called Caspian, and it's basically an atmospheric metal album, but it's more like a metal album than this is. And I'm telling you, I just love atmosphere music because it's great, because it's diversive, it's progressive, it's not repetitive. It allows you to be able to basically get a cohesive thought in, while at the same time having some type of noise to keep you from going crazy and stabbing yourself in the eye. 10 out of 10 right there. Suitability. That's the problem with these kind of things. When you have a band like this, they don't really stick into any kind of touring method, because they're too metally or too weird in their vibes to tour with rock groups. And especially being Anathema, they are a veteran group at this point, so they're not really able to tour with rock groups anyway. But also, they really stick out different from any kind of metal group, to where it really becomes kind of a question of, are there any symphonic bands that would tour with them? I can't really put them on any radio mixes, like I said, so it's really kind of an attracting point for me as far as that goes. And I have to give it a 5 out of 10 right there. As far as musical mastery, how are they doing on these instruments? Do they do it well? Do they play them well? There's not really any extreme playing right there. In a lot of situations on this album, you're hearing a tempo beat on there, where it's like a timer beat, like a timer itself, like not actually drummer playing the drums, but like a timer beat, like a pot. That kind of noise. I'm not a huge fan of that. Now, at the same time, everything outside of that, it worked. And it also, the vocals were amazing, but they weren't really seeing any true, like, hardcore, demonstrative play throughout the album. You're mostly seeing atmospheric play, which is basically guitarist riffing one note at about 100 and at about, let's see, it's basically one note being replayed over and over and over again at a very quick pace in order to maintain a true atmospheric sound of guitar playing. It's not bad, but it's not true mastery as far as I'm concerned, as far as looking for a divisive type of style. Gonna give it an 8 out of 10 right there, because believe it or not, it's not easy to do those kind of guitar riffs, but it's just not the way I like to hear my music. As far as for overall total, so our overall total score for this band is going to be a 79 out of 100. Which makes it a C+ record, a really good record for you to listen to, but definitely not one that you should break down someone's door and try to find right now. If you're not a fan of atmosphere or of atmospheric music, you won't really enjoy this. So you have to be a fan of the atmospheric genre in general to actually appreciate this. If you're not a fan of atmospheric music, then don't pick up this album, because you'll probably get angry. But if you play video games, or if you just like to have a general, continuous vibe, or if you have a background in contemporary worship music that you've grown to appreciate that type of style over the years, then definitely give this album a try. Anathema brought it back really good this year with another great album, and I'm proud to have this album in my collection now. I like it. I really do. Guys, as always, Warriors, keep listening to music, enjoy the music itself, leave your thoughts in the comment section below, and as always, keep stealing those kneecaps. Peace.